Good evening, everyone. My name is PJ Conover. I'm the Planning Commission Administrator for Calvert County, and tonight I'll also be acting as moderator. I'd like to let you know this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio, for record-keeping purposes. For those attending virtually or on the phone, please keep yourself muted to ensure no interruptions to this evening. For those of you calling in, if you are asked to speak, you can mute and unmute yourself by using the buttons on your cell phone or by dialing *6. For those on a computer, if asked to speak, you can mute and unmute yourself by moving your mouse, then using the buttons on the toolbar and the bottom left of your screen. You can also mute and unmute yourself by using keyboard shortcuts. On Windows, press Alt-A, and on Mac, press Command-Shift-A. When questions or comments are requested of the public, those attending in person will be asked to speak first, and those attending virtually will speak after. If you are attending virtually and would like to ask a question or make a comment, please go to the comments icon on your Zoom page and type your comments into that section. If you are attending via phone and would like to ask a question or make a comment when asked, please use the raise hand functions. Individuals speaking will be given 2 minutes, and individuals representing an organization will be given 5 minutes, and staff will be keeping time. Finally, please say your name every time you speak for the benefit of those calling in who cannot see you. Commissioner Jones, meeting's yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Paul. I'm Steve Jones, Chair of the Calvert County Planning Commission. It's January 26, 2022, 7 p.m. We have guests attending in person and on Zoom tonight. We'll start the meeting, call the meeting to order with roll call. Vice Chair Bueller.
Here.
Commissioner Kernan.
Here.
Commissioner Freeland.
Here.
Commissioner Toohey.
Here.
Commissioner Dr. Richard Holler.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
All present. Thank you. If we stand for a Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones, that brings us to item 3, action on proposed agenda.
Do I have a motion on our agenda?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Kernan, seconded by Commissioner Toohey. All in favor?
Aye.
I know this is different, I apologize. Any against? Motion carries. Paul?
Item 4 is action on summary of actions. One item this evening, item 4A, the December 15th, 2021 Planning Commission regular meeting summary of actions.
Do I have a
Chairman,
motion?
I make a motion that we accept the summary of actions as proposed.
Motion by Commissioner Toohey,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kernan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is item 5, recognition of persons attending the meeting. This evening from County Planning and Zoning, we have Mary Beth Cook, Director, Rachel O'Shea, Zoning Planner, Jenny Plummer-Welker, AICP and Long Range Planner. Attending via Zoom, Tamara Blake-Wallace, Principal Planner, and Olivia Vidato, Planner 3. Also in attendance with us, John Mattingly, providing legal counsel, and Becky Parkinson, recording clerk this evening. Moving on to item 6, this will be long-range planning. There are 3 items this evening. Item 6A is the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan update. Presenting this evening is Jenny Plummer-Welker. Jenny?
Thank you, Jenny.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jenny Plummer-Welker, Long Range Planner with Calvert County Planning and Zoning. With me this evening virtually is Carolyn Sunderland, Deputy Director for Planning, and Tamara Blake-Wallace, Principal Planner. Also, Mary Beth Cook has been assisting with the Master Plan update. Tonight's discussion is a continuation of the Planning Commission's special meeting from October 27th, 2021. You received in advance of tonight's meeting the staff memorandum dated January 11th, 2022, along with attachments, the summary and staff analysis, comments on the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan, July 2021 draft, excerpts of chapters 2 and 3, annotated with the Planning Commission's actions taken at the special meeting on October 27th, a memorandum from the Maryland Department of Planning, Michael Baer, to Carolyn Sunderland, dated August 9th, 2017. It's the Calvert County Capacity Analysis. In addition, there is the Prince Frederick Residential Density Study from 2017 and tonight's slides. You previously received in advance of the October 27th special meeting the agency and public comments that were received by September 1st, and then also the public comments that were received September 2nd through October 1st, and the summary and staff analysis, the complete summary, that was 23 pages that you received last year. So the full summary is 23 pages. Tonight is an excerpt. It's 6 pages, and it shows the actions that you took at October 27th on Chapter 2. The actions appear on page 1, so later on this evening we'll start on page 2 for continuing the discussion. Planning Commission's actions are highlighted in yellow. Other than adding your actions, staff has made no changes to that summary, so it's just an excerpt from that earlier one. And staff has made no changes to the Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan July 2021 draft since your meeting in October. At the Planning Commission September 15th meeting in 2021, staff provided a draft text to fill in timeframes and responsible parties for Chapter 11, pages 1116 through 1118. The purpose of the Planning Commission's meeting in October was to consider written comments received on the July draft plan, consider comments from people who spoke at the meeting that evening, and then discuss what changes to make to the July 2021 draft. The Planning Commission invited people to speak and provided this was an additional opportunity in addition to the written comments. And I have a few introductory slides, so if we could proceed to the next one, please. So we're discussing Prince Frederick tonight. The next one. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to continue the discussion of Chapters 2 and 3 and to resume the review of the summary and staff analysis and discuss and vote on what changes to make to the July 2021 draft. I'd like to note you're ahead of me, sorry. I would like to note that the Planning Commission is resuming the discussion and that you completed discussions of Chapters 4 through 11 and directed staff to make changes. Staff has not yet made changes to the draft yet. We're waiting for you to complete 2 and 3, and then we'll proceed with that. Once you conclude the review of this draft, we will proceed in preparing the revised draft and bring it back to you as you directed at your special meeting. Once we bring that draft back to you, you can make changes to it, and then the next step would be to proceed with a revised draft, if you so choose to revise it, to take to public hearing. It would be the public hearing draft that would be distributed to the public and agencies for another round of comments, and people would be given an opportunity to submit written comments and speak at the public hearing. The Planning Commission's public hearing will need to provide the state agencies and the public at least 60 days advance notice before that public hearing is scheduled. If we could go to the next one. So we're in the second phase of the master plan update. The Planning Commission in fall of 2019 endorsed a 3-phase process to update the plan. First phase, identify issues. Second phase, develop the plan. And third phase, adoption. This slide will need to be updated. It says develop the plan through fall 2021. We'll need to extend that to winter 2021-22 and then extend the adoption phase into the spring. During the adoption phase, there'll be opportunities for people to submit comments, both to the Planning Commission and to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners can take the Planning Commission's plan and either adopt it, modify it, remand it back to the Planning Commission for changes, or disapprove the plan. The board's granted this authority by the Maryland Annotated Code, the land use article. Next slide, please. The 2021 draft was prepared by county staff, assisted by staff from other departments, and Sabrin Associates, a Mead and Hunt company. The consultant specifically assisted with the transportation and land use chapters and the key issues, purpose, and implementation chapter. The draft plan was distributed to agencies and the public for review, and as I mentioned, comments were received through September 1st. The Planning Commission at your September 15th meeting decided to, at the request of the League of Women Voters, extend the public comment period through October 1st. 4 agencies and 13 people submitted comments during that initial comment period, and then 11 people submitted comments during the extended comment period, of which 5 had submitted comments in the initial period. So this concludes the introductory slides. At this point, I suggest that we resume discussion on Chapter 2. Okay. Staff prepared a high-level summary of comments and analyzed the comments and prepared recommendations for your consideration. At the special meeting, staff recommended that the Planning Commission review chapter by chapter, and after each comment, analysis, and recommendation section, we recommended that you discuss the item and give direction to staff what changes to make. So that's, I assume we'll follow the same procedure this evening since it's a continuation. You've already covered the first items on page 1, so we're now on the summary. So turning to page 2, there were concerns expressed that the Prince Frederick plan needs to have tight restrictions on growth to not allow the growth rate to climb. And we noted that the master plan sets broad categories and the zoning regulations establish density, that you can change the proposed land use categories, and that at this point, I'd like to do some more slides before we go into discussion on this. The Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan, the current plan, this is the current zoning ordinance, the current zoning map. So Prince Frederick Town Center is noted in purple. There is the Farm and Forest District, which is green. The Rural Community District, which is white. There's a light yellow that may be a little difficult to see. That's the rural community. And then the gray area is the employment center land. The 1 mile radius is the dashed line, and you can just see to the north where the Huntingtown Town Center and to the south, St. Leonard Town Center are shown. Next, please. The map on the left shows the current zoning. In this map, the rural community is light tan, not white. And the map on the right shows the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan's future land use map. Phase 1 indicated in dark purple, and Phase 2 in light purple. The Board of County Commissioners adopted the plan in August 2019. And this is a vision for 2040. And I'd like to quote the comprehensive plan. The proposed Phase 2 expansion will be considered through the updating of various other plans, including the Calvert County Transportation Plan, Prince Frederick Town Center Master Plan, and other infrastructure plans as may be appropriate. The boundaries of the 2 phases are shown in Figure 3-5. The Prince Frederick Phase 2 expansion should occur only after these plans are updated, as well as meeting future adequate public facilities, regulation considerations, including meeting established water, sewer, and public safety criteria. Expansion of the Prince Frederick Town Center will require amending the Town Center Master Plan and zoning for the Town Center, end quote. If we can move to the next slide. Slide 8 shows Figure 3-5 from the comprehensive plan, shows Phase 1 and Phase 2. The Phase 1 would be all of the purple, dark purple area, and then Phase 2 is the light purple. Next, please. This next map is an aerial photograph. Sometimes it's easier for people to identify where in the town center by looking at the aerial. So this shows the expansion areas of Phase 1 and Phase 2 in purple over an aerial photograph. If we could stay on this slide. One of the comments in Chapter 4, Environment and Natural Resources, was how much land within the proposed expansion area is considered developable, and how is this determined? So staff noted at your special meeting that staff conducted an analysis. We worked with the Technology Service GIS staff to review basically parcel by parcel and looking at environmental features such as steep slopes and wetlands, and did an analysis of what would be considered highly developable land and land that was already committed, that already had buildings on it. And we had recommended that you vote to approve the analysis and being summarized and included in the draft plan. I would like to note that the analysis was done in 2017. Next slide, please. So during the residential density study, this analysis staff with the GIS staff analyzed maps, current development, and environmental features, and then created the highly developable acreage amounts. What this graph shows is the existing town center. The acreage is in blue, so that's total acreage for current town center, and then the yellow is the highly developable acreage that's still available to be developed. And then phase 1 and phase 2 are also shown in blue total, and yellow the highly developable acreage. And then the total is all those areas together, existing town center, phase 1 and phase 2. Next, please. This is a table of the residential study showing existing town center, phase 1, phase 2, and the total. The current baseline units are the number of potential units that could be created without the use of TDRs. The current maximum yield is the potential number of units that could be created with the use of TDRs and the current zoning that's inside and outside the town center. The potential maximum yield is the number of dwelling units that could be created with the use of TDRs, and assuming that the town center's current dwelling unit density of 14 units per acre is carried out to that new phase 1 and phase 2 area. That is an assumption because the Prince Frederick Town Center draft plan recommends that the areas on the western side, except for an area around the college, be low density, 1 to 5 units per acre. I do note Newtown District is currently at 24 units per acre. So this is a hypothetical potential yield for number of units. Going to the next slide, please. So the actual dwelling units per acre has not been determined yet. That would be determined through the zoning ordinance regulations. The master plan would just give general guidance on ranges, like as mentioned, 5 to 14 or 1 to 4. The draft plan land use map on page 3.5 identifies much of the phase 2 expansion area as traditional suburban land use, a low density area of 1 to 4 units. So that would bring that number in that table down more than what it shows now.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
So the 24 units per acre, that's what it allows. But didn't we determine that that can't be accomplished?
Excuse me, that's the Newtown District, and I believe it has been discussed that it would be challenging to get the 24 units per acre.
I think it was more of 12 to 14
That was not me.
ballpark in it, so, okay. All right, I'm sorry.
That's part of your text amendment later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, slide 12. So this concludes the preamble to Chapter 2. So if we could circle back to page 2, we could stay on this slide. The Prince Frederick plan needs to have tight restrictions on growth, not to allow the growth rate to climb. As I've mentioned, the master plan sets the broad categories. The zoning regulations establish the actual number of units per acre. Also, the comprehensive plan suggests that actually directs the county to look at expanding the adequate public facilities. As you know, the county currently has adequate public facility regulations for schools and for roads. The proposal would be to look at those and consider strengthening them, and then also to look at regulations to include water, wastewater, stormwater drainage, fire and emergency, and law enforcement. And staff, Mary Beth Cook, is working with will be convening other departments soon to talk about those expansions of those, or to look at those regulations. So at this point, that concludes staff's presentation on this part of Chapter 2. Are there any questions?
Commissioners? No questions?
So you could decide to no change, make a change. We can circle back to this one.
Commissioners, what say you? What do you need on this, Jen?
I guess the question is, are you comfortable with the way the draft is written as far as having the broad categories of land use, or do you want to be more specific and set like a growth rate, which I believe we have more discussion of that in Chapter 3.
Let's do that.
Okay, we'll circle back. If the Planning Commission Administrator could note that we need to circle back to page 2. Then moving on to Chapter 3, on page 2 of the summary, there were comments received that the draft plan includes planning for the entirety of the future expansion area of Prince Frederick Town Center, the current boundary, Phase 1 and Phase 2, and that the draft plan makes no distinction between Phase 1 and Phase 2. As I noted earlier, the comprehensive plan describes Phase 1 and Phase 2 expansions, and it includes a map of the future expansion areas. Prince Frederick's current acreage is approximately about 1,550 acres. The Phase 1 expansion is 307 approximately, and Phase 2 is approximately 1,239 for approximately 3,096. There's a significant amount of time that county staff, the Planning Commission, and the public devote to updating a town center plan. And given the amount of time to update the plan, staff decided to look at the entire area rather than looking at the 300-some acres of Phase 1 to make the most efficient use of the public and staff's time. The Planning Commission could consider adding information about the expansion phasing from the comprehensive plan, just take a direct quote from the plan and include it in the master plan, and also describe the zoning map amendment so that people are aware of that. Staff's recommendation is to add information from the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan about the expansion and the zoning map amendment process that would need to be followed to officially expand the Prince Frederick Town Center. So I await your motion.
Commissioners, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Jenny, do you know at what percent capacity the current sewer system is operating?
That's a great question. No, I do not. No, I don't.
Didn't we just hear? We were told not too long ago it was at 60%, which I was having a hard time wrapping my mind around, but I could be wrong with that. Does that number even make sense?
Might be a good opportunity to invite the Department of Public Works staff to come and give an update on what the status is of the infrastructure for water and sewer.
Sounds good.
Yeah, does anybody know if there's a capital project that would upgrade or expand the capacity of the sewer system?
No.
The proposed capital improvement plan is being discussed with the Board of County Commissioners in segments over the next few weeks, few months. So certainly we can get answers to that question.
So Jen, what you're asking now is, do we want to make any changes? Is that what you're asking me? Do we want to?
The staff's recommendation is to take the direct quote from the comprehensive plan about when Phase 1, Phase 2, what triggers those, to put that in the draft master plan, and to summarize the steps that one would need to follow officially to change the town center boundaries. So that's a zoning map amendment. So it'd be a educational section in the plan.
Anybody want to take a stab at this?
Jenny, what would the preferred wording be?
The direct quote that I did earlier, which was, give me a moment.
There is a staff recommendation on page 3.
I have a motion. Go ahead, Greg.
Yes, I make the motion that we accept staff's recommendation to add information from the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan about the expansion and the zoning map amendment process that would need to be followed to officially expand Prince Frederick Town Center boundary.
Motion by Commissioner Kernan,
I will second that motion.
seconded by Commissioner Tui. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Opposed?
Opposed by Commissioner Wilson.
Lisa's abstaining.
Okay, and one abstain. So the motion is 5-1 and 1. Does that sound right? Lisa, Commissioner Williams.
Well, if you didn't vote, it'd be 4-1 and 1.
Yeah, 4-1-1, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. There were concerns expressed about the draft land use chapters, Objective 1, establish land use categories rather than development districts, and that the target residential density of 5 to 14 units per acre would destroy the quiet village atmosphere that exists and overwhelm or replace the old late 1800s, early 1900s homes, unquote. There was the suggestion if multifamily apartments are to be built in the Old Town District, they would be more appropriate to be located along Maryland 2-4 with commercial space on the first floor. Land use categories, as I mentioned, are broad categories like residential, commercial, institutional, industrial. In the case of the draft Town Center Master Plan, these include traditional suburban village, Main Street / Old Town, New Town / mixed use redevelopment, and environmental conservation areas. The Prince Frederick zoning ordinance currently describes 8 planning districts, and the land use charts show what can and cannot be permitted in them. The proposed land use categories would replace the 8 development districts. As an example, Solomon's has development districts. There's the planning area C, but it's subdivided into multiple sub-areas, including C7, which is located in a variety of areas within the Solomon's Town Center. For example, areas along the Narrows and along Back Creek. So it's my point is that just because, right now these are 8 distinct districts. If you can move to the next slide, please. I believe we've got, it's 1 or 2 ahead of this one. The next one is the 8 planning districts. So right now there's 8 districts and they're geographically tied. There's only one spot for each planning district. The planning areas in general, if we could go back 2 slides, for the Prince Frederick draft plan, you'll note there's several areas that are not contiguous. So we've got the striped area is the new town / mixed use redevelopment. There's areas in the north part of the town center along Maryland 2-4 and in that center part. So those are 2 different areas, but it's the same planning category. And then also the darker orange, there's the area out near the college and then the area in the main part of the town center. So it's the same planning area, but they're in different areas of the town center, sort of like Solomon's and the C7 district. As shown on the proposed map here on slide 12, there are several areas of these different types of districts. The draft plan describes the suburban village, Main Street, Old Town, and New Town mixed-use redevelopment as having low to medium density, which is 5 to 14 units per acre. And the plan envisions Old Town and Main Street category as being, quote, centered on the civic and government complex and surrounding environs with residential density of 5 to 14 units per acre, primarily of townhomes, apartments, and tightly clustered single-family homes similar to the suburban village. Currently, the Prince Frederick ordinance, so the current town center ordinance allows up to 14 units per acre for these areas, including Old Town Transitional, and Old Town Residential. Let's take a closer look, if we can move to the next slide. The Prince Frederick zoning ordinance Well, this is focusing in on that old Main Street area, Old Town area. Taking a closer look at the Old Town area, the Prince Frederick zoning ordinance currently allows detached single-family dwellings, attached dwellings, which are duplex, triplex, fourplex, and townhouse, and multifamily attached buildings, which are apartments. If we can move to the next slide. This chart shows, two more. There we go. This table shows the current zoning, Old Town residential, Old Town transitional, the types of dwelling units that are permitted in each. P is permitted, C is conditional. The options for the Planning Commission to consider that staff are suggesting is keep the language in the draft plan as it is now, no change, or revise the description of the Main Street Old Town district so that residential types within that district are primarily single-family detached and attached dwellings, duplex, triplex, and fourplex, that look like single-family detached dwellings, so that the new development blends in with the historic home character of Main Street and Old Town Prince Frederick. And staff is recommending that second option, that the master plan actually spells out that in order to make the new development look more in keeping with the current development, is that it be limited to those types of dwellings.
Do you have any examples of what that would look like?
Yes, but not with me. Yes, we do have examples of building types, like duplex, triplex, that look like a single-family house. It depends on where you put the entrance. You can have an entrance on the front of the street, and then you can have an entrance on the side. So you actually have two units, but it looks like one single-family house.
So in my farmer mind, I have to try to put everything in an area perspective. And for the single-family detached to have something close to 14 units per acre, we're talking lot sizes of 3,000 square feet or less.
I'm not the one that does the subdivision, so I'm not handy with that.
So 3,000 times 14 is 42,000. It's 43,000 and some change in an acre. So you gotta have some roads and you gotta have some stormwater management. So to get 14 detached units on an acre, you're talking a lot size of 3,000 square feet.
What is permitted is not always possible.
I understand.
And it may be that if you want to protect this area a bit more, it would be to set the range lower. Currently, the whole town center except for Newtown allows 14 units per acre. You could dial that down to something a bit less, and I'm not going to throw a number out there, but it could be less than 14, so that it's more in keeping with that old town development style. Now, if you'd like, we could come back with examples of dwelling types, triplex, duplex, et cetera, and I'm sure the development review team could help out with the different types of densities, what lot sizes are for different.
I would
Units.
almost like to see what
I'd
that
like to
looks
see
like
that,
on
yeah.
a map,
I would too, yeah.
like just the visual of what it looks like.
We have actually examples, aerials from around the county at different dwelling unit densities. So, for example, perhaps single family in St. Leonard or attached dwellings in Chesapeake Beach. So we do have those. There's some that we have access to what exists in general, but we have some specific examples in the county.
Okay, well, maybe we can use that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Flynn, what were you thinking if you had to guess we should leave? I mean, obviously, we couldn't put 14 in there, but I guess it would depend on how much space we need for roads and infrastructure and everything that's needed.
Well, I think Mary Beth or Jenny, one of the other alluded to it. I think it's very rarely that you can make the maximum density based on the topography of the land that you're working with.
Yeah.
But, I'm just trying to compare what that might look like against some of the older houses that are on Main Street in Prince Frederick. Some of those houses have footprints of 3,000 square feet, not counting, you know, the yard and the landscape.
But also, Commissioner, nowadays, aren't quite a few of those houses subdivided internally where there are multiple businesses within those houses with multiple entrances, similar to what Jenny's talking about now? Not many people are using that size houses anymore.
Yeah, understood. I just am thinking that we should be keeping the Main Street viewscape as close to what it is now.
I agree with that.
Goal.
So we can return with images and examples of footprints and lot sizes for a variety of densities for you to consider for the Old Town area.
Sounds good.
If we could go back to slide 12, Mr. Conover. So this is the map of the proposed land use categories. There were questions and concerns expressed about the number of residential units that could be built and the growth rate. Questions included, are there limits on how many new housing units are permitted per year, either in Calvert County or Prince Frederick? The county comprehensive plan predicted a growth rate of 9% over 20 years. Are there ordinances to regulate that growth rate? Concerns were expressed that there is no limit on how many units that can be built. There are no limits on how many new housing units are permitted per year, either in Calvert County or Prince Frederick. There are no ordinances that regulate the growth rate in Calvert County or Prince Frederick as a percentage of the current number of households. The Calvert County Comprehensive Plan adopted in 2019 included the growth rate of 9% for the years, the predicted growth rate of 9% for the years 2020 to 2030, and just about a 2% increase from 2030 to 2040. Based upon the recent released census data for 2020, the county's growth rate between 2010 and 2020 was 4.6%. The county government has adequate public facilities ordinances, or regulations, that manage the rate of residential and commercial growth in regards to the school capacity and road capacity. And they're designed to slow the pace of development.
Ms. Jen?
Yes.
My apologies. We have some technical difficulties occurring, so we need to take a 10-minute break till we get that resolved.
Okay.
I apologize.
No worries.
Okay. Motion, do you need a motion to adjourn?
You can just call it as the chair.
Okay, all right, 10-minute break.
Thank you.
Yep.
Who are attempting to come in and watch the meeting and participate in the meeting via Zoom are unable to do so. Accordingly, we can't meet the published parameters for this meeting, and we are gonna have to close it at this time. The only other thing I'd put on the record is that we need to, whatever minutes or recordings were taken, need to be made available to the public, be they abbreviated or not, just so people can make sure that nothing was done when they were unable to participate. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. President.
Can we also, with that, I guess we could get public comment from the citizens about the portion of the meeting that we had so far? I would imagine we're not going to repeat that, or what's your recommendation?
Actually, we do have to repeat it. It's considered a nullity at this
So
point.
we're going to repeat the whole meeting?
Unfortunately, we have to. The only reason we're publishing what we did right now is for transparency's sake.
Okay.
But unfortunately, whatever evidence was put in at this point is a nullity.
Okay. So do you need a motion to adjourn at this point?
We still would need one, yes, sir.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Do we need a motion to
Dave-
reschedule before we motion to adjourn?
Go ahead, make the motion.
The Planning Commission has a scheduled meeting for February 16th, and also a reserved meeting for the 23rd, if you'd like to move tonight's meeting to the 16th, and then the normally scheduled February 16th meeting to the 23rd, that could be your motion.
Does anyone have a conflict with those two dates? The 16th and the 23rd?
of February, correct.
You give me a motion, Greg.
Yes. Motion to move the meeting for the 16th to the 23rd, and the meeting for tonight to the 16th, okay?
Seconded.
Motion by Commissioner Kernan, second by Commissioner Tui. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any against? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Second by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.